So obviously, we're still waiting for the details on the Republicans' side of this relief plan. Democrats have already said they're not going to be happy with it. But what's your reaction to what we've seen so far, specifically this idea that unemployment will drop significantly by 2/3?
It's a Main Street issue. I want to be very clear about that. America is hurting. There are a lot of people out of work, and they need these kinds of enhancements, support from not only federal government but state government. The Democrats, Republicans, they'll figure it out. There will be the back and forth that you expect when they make the sausage in Washington, but it will come down. It's a separate question about the tech sector and how that will be affected. And the fact is that tech is actually weathering the crisis better than most. And so this, the pain that's being addressed isn't necessarily in the tech sector, but it's in Main Street. And that's why this is so important for the country, but not necessarily in the same way that it is for Silicon Valley.
That said, Russell, so much of tech is startups. These are fledgling businesses that could have a lot of potential, but obviously need funding to get further down that path. We spoke to AOL co-founder Steve Case last week, who argued that the next round of stimulus should be going to startups that are going to create more jobs. But of course, it's hard to prove that these companies will create jobs when it's so far into the future. How much of the stimulus funding have startups and Silicon Valley actually received?
I can't quote you numbers, but it's actually smaller amounts than people would think. The truth is, in Silicon Valley, the startup culture, the startup environment has always lived in its own specialized ecosystem with an arm's length relationship with Washington and with Wall Street, and of course, that umbilical cord tethered to the venture capital community. And so this continues to be a closed ecosystem, even during the pandemic. We're seeing layoffs in the startup environment, but not the kinds of numbers that you've seen in other sectors. So for the most part, your startups continue to be fairly robust.
Meantime, we're continuing to watch there Senator Marco Rubio making his arguments on the Senate floor as the GOP continues to debate their version of this stimulus package. We've received the first part of this plan. We're continuing to go through it. It's a very dense plan, so we are working to pull out the highlights. Russell, how many jobs have been lost in Silicon Valley? How many startups have been forced to close their doors? Do you have any numbers on that?
We only have preliminary numbers, and we can't be precise because they're constantly moving targets. But the fact is, we have to say it up front, the startup community has not been hurt in the same way that other sectors, especially the service sectors, the food, the retail, those sectors have been hurt in a way that's been devastating. It's not the case with the startup community. They're drawing on deep pockets of funds that have come from venture capital in the millions and millions of dollars. We have about 137 companies that just achieved their A round of funding. Of those, about 50% had to have some layoffs, but only 7 of those startup companies have gone laid off 100% of their workforce. So as I say, this sector, vital sector, it continues to be more robust than the others that have been really hammered by the pandemic.
Russell, when this relief package, when you see the details of it, what exactly are you going to be looking for? What could have a meaningful impact?
I think what's especially important is the unemployment benefit, the payroll, the Paycheck Protection Program for small business. That has been absolutely key. And the difficulty for small business is that it hasn't been reliable. The red tape, for example, for figuring out the loan forgiveness has been too difficult to negotiate. There hasn't been the assurance that it would continue, and so you can't undertake any of the long-term planning that you would need. So those are the sorts of things that small business especially is looking for in this second round of stimulus.